It all starts with a patient. So what happens when a patient, a liver patient no less, one of the 500 million people living with conditions that often go undiagnosed, untreated, or misdiagnosed, mistreated, and stigmatized, brings the challenges of liver patients front and center? And what happens when a patient then leads a discussion with world experts in policy, research, clinical care, and wellness on ways to overcome these challenges? Let's find out today on GLI Live. Hello and welcome. My name is Donna Cryer, and I am the CEO and founder of the Global Liver Institute, and I have the great privilege of being your host for this episode of GLI Live, which is part of a series where we get the opportunity to focus on our Liver Action Network community members and spotlight and highlight the fantastic work that they are doing, and to tell you about what that fantastic work is. I have with me today Gina Villiotti Madison, who is the Executive Director of NASH Knowledge, and Dr. Rohit Kohli, who is a member of their board and has such an extensive list of titles beyond that, including being the Vice Chair of the Obesity, Metabolism, and Nutrition for the American Gastroenterological Association, or AGA, as we lovingly know it, one of our medical society partners. But we could spend all day listing his accolades and titles, but instead, I will just welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Excellent. So Gina, how did this get started? You're a banker.
So I worked in corporate America at a bank for over 10 years. And my dad actually was diagnosed with fatty liver disease. And I never knew about this diagnosis because my parents really didn't think it was a big deal. The doctor didn't make a big deal of it. Well, you fast forward and all of a sudden my dad is told that he has NASH. He has liver cancer, he has cirrhosis, and he's not a drinker. So this was a shock to them. So my dad was very fortunate, through his journey to get a liver transplant. So he got his liver transplant, and reflecting back on his experience, he realized that, he was trying to find information out there about NASH and fatty liver disease. And not only at that time was there no information, but he did find it was very conflicting and it was confusing. So he felt that he was given this miracle of life for a reason, and that it was upon him, he was kind of called to start our organization so that he could really reach other patients just like himself, to really help them. And at the time, this is actually a funny story. He, really just wanted to keep it very small and just reach a few people if he could just help a few people. And I remember, with my background, I was still at banking at the time, and he was sharing this with me. So I was looking on LinkedIn and I found this amazing woman, Donna Cryer, who had this organization, the Global Liver Institute. So I sent a friend request, a connection request, and started really reading all these posts and liking them. And Donna, you reached out to me and said, hey, you're really, liking all of our posts. You wanted to get together and talk with us. And that was really the beginning. My dad had this idea to start our organization. But honestly, that was the beginning. That accelerated our growth. We joined, A3, and just really from there, our nonprofit just took off. We made so many different connections, and I ultimately left my career in banking to step in as executive director of our organization so that I could really help us, move forward. My dad and I have a lot of different and complementary skills, so it worked out really well together. But I remember him at that time saying, why are you reaching out to her? I want to keep this so small. And, now we all look back and we laugh about that because I don't even think he realized at the time just how this disease and, the need that was there in the community. He recognized the small need based on his experience, but I don't think he realized the larger need. And you, Donna, helped us actually recognize that. So we appreciate it.
I don't do small things. So
Right, exactly.
should I put a warning label on my LinkedIn? Do not reach out if you want to do small things, because that's not what happens here.
Right. Well, we appreciate that.
But no, you had it so such a necessary and important part of the advocacy field of ensuring that there is a fully functioning advocacy field for NASH, for NASH patients, to partner with NASH researchers and physicians. And so the fact that your entire family has weighed in and your different perspectives and experiences have already helped so many around the world. even. And Dr. Kohli, how did you become connected? How did you hear about the miracle that was happening in Pittsburgh?
It was an email from Gina's dad. And Gina, thank you for sharing Tony's story. So Tony reached out to me. There's a couple of people who probably he was looking at, and in terms of adding a pediatric representation to the board. And when he reached out to me, my first response was, "Where have you been?" Because honestly, I've been looking at fatty liver disease in pediatrics since 2003. And when I think it was Gina, I've been with you guys now about 2.5 years, maybe.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds good.
So it was a long 15, 16-year wait to find a advocacy arm that I can lean on for children who have fatty liver disease. For the longest, have been answering the question, do children even have a liver disease? Do children even have fatty liver disease? So yeah, to have comrades in arms who want to take up this banner and spread the word and knowledge was just an amazing, fortuitous incident. And when Tony reached out, I said, yes, sign me up.
I think that's fantastic. And I think that, it's interesting. I get the question sometimes, are you concerned that other advocacy groups start, or particularly that, the people come to the Advanced Advocacy Academy and then decide, well, we're going to start our own nonprofit. I was like, no, that's entirely what this is for, to make the field as a whole stronger, and not everybody's going to want to start their own advocacy organization, but the problems are so large and so diverse, and the need for advocacy to focus on the different myriad problems that we have, but specifically the fact that, in conversations, Gina, with your family, as you were trying to figure out how to add value to the space, and your heart really drew you to pediatrics, I was like, that is such a need, and you can fill that uniquely and distinctly, and really grow a real, lane and an expertise and relationships, and take that on, while the Fatty Liver Foundation or other organizations take on it. Together, though, we'll have fuller coverage of the advocacy needs of all of the patients and families. And so I could not be more excited to see you choose this direction. And I thought getting Dr. Kohli was such a boss move. That's how we saw it.
It's the other way around. It's like finding someone who is passionate to launch a nonprofit, an advocacy arm to this. So we've been doing bench science and clinical research in pediatric fatty liver disease, as I said, for so many years. But to have people motivated to be out in the community needs partnership. And so that's what I said. It's not being at all. When you have the meeting of the minds, it was kind of just, yes, let's just go in and do it.
I think that you are both really exemplifying and embodying what makes a really strong and effective community advocacy organization. And this is one of the best practices that we want to showcase as we, spotlight the different Liver Action Network members, that the partnership with physicians and patient advocates, bringing both perspectives and sets of expertise together, is what really it makes your work spark. But I think it's really a model for how we move forward. Gina, do you want to talk about some of the work that you've done together?
Sure. Yeah, it's such a blessing to have Dr. Kohli on our board, because we always say we're not medical experts here at NASH Knowledge. We're just, like you said, my dad was a patient. My son actually is overweight, and we had his liver enzymes tested. He's at risk for prediabetes, actually. Retested again. So I have a personal desire, connection to that as well, but we don't have that medical expertise. So it's so great to have Dr. Kohli and other medical experts on our board to share with us what they're seeing in patients, what the true needs are. Because we can say, that we know the needs, but to really have that direct one-on-one expertise from them And in fact, one of the things that, that Dr. Kohli did for us that was just such really appreciated was we have our fatty liver roadmap. It was something my dad created. It was one of our first documents that we created. It was something he wanted. And Dr. Kohli said, we need a pediatric fatty liver roadmap as well. And so that's just been, one example of many. We've created our animated videos that are geared towards children and for families, and just being able to have, Dr. Kohli's expertise to weigh in on that and say, hey, you might want to change this. We need to change that has just, it's really great. And another thing that we've been doing also is we've recognized the need in the Hispanic community as well. Right. So we've taken those videos and we've translated them into Spanish. We've launched our Spanish website, but really focusing on the family and on the kids. Right. We have found like that niche there because we would go to health fairs and we would talk about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. People would say, I don't drink, and they would kind of walk away. Right. So we found that by focusing on kids, we're actually reaching the whole family as well. Right. There's such a need there with the family, but with the way you eat, your lifestyle, that all starts in the home. It's a family issue. And just having, Dr. Kohli and his expertise and what he's seeing and what he hears from parents, as well as what he's seeing in children, it's just so helpful for us as we really find out what are those tools and resources that patients really do need. Because we're a patient advocacy organization. Our goal here at NASH Knowledge is to raise awareness and provide that education to patients. So being able to have a doctor, a pediatrician or an expert who's really talking to the patients and see what they need, it just helps us so much to really address what those true needs are.
Excellent. And Dr. Kohli, what are, say, the top 3 to 5 things that you are telling the families about nutrition or other sort of lifestyle and home habits to have a healthy liver?
No, it's key to this disease and many others, of course. In terms of my own journey, trying to learn how to communicate, you can discover many things in the basic science laboratory, and you can do a dozen clinical trials. But when it comes down to the rubber meeting the road, so to speak, talking to a family and talking to a patient, especially a pediatric aged patient, is tough because, like you said, you just asked Donna, what are the top 3 to 5 things? Started off, unbeknownst to myself, not as knowledgeable I may be as I am today, with top 10 things. So I have a 30-minute clinical encounter of which I would spend, 10 minutes going over these 10 different things. You should do A, B, C, D. 3 months later.
Yeah. And as a patient, I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time. I barely got here. And, and if I'm trying to bring my kid, like we barely got dressed and out of the house with everybody wearing shoes. And you're saying I have to do 10 things. I'm like, I'm done.
They would come back in 3 months and they would have not lost weight. Their liver enzymes would still be elevated. So I mean, Rohit, this is not working. So yeah, we had to distill it down. We had to pick and choose. So we now try to stage our advice. And the number one advice that I give is, and actually it became kind of on its own a jingle of sorts, is that if it's sweet and you can pour, kick it out the door. We wanted to eliminate, and there's scientific data behind this, right? That we want to eliminate all sugar sweetened drinks from the whole pantry, if I could, if refrigerator, right? And it was spurned. This jingle was spurred on because I would say, don't drink soda. They would come back drinking lots of chocolate milk. I would say, don't drink juice. They would drink Gatorade. You get the or depending on which part of the country you're.
Never underestimate the creativity of people,
especially of a 12-year-old. So then I said, you have to eliminate all. So let's just make it simple for them. And this clicked with the patients. They got it. So one thing at a time. And then they would come back to the second visit, starting to do that, eliminating the sweet drinks. Then I would talk about maybe a balance between, in your plate, carbs and proteins, and how to readjust that to be more proteins and less carbs. Right. And the third time they would come back, then maybe talk about portion control. And by the fourth time, either they had already lost weight and their numbers were better, or they didn't come back, which is an issue because follow-up in obesity-centered clinics is big. Loss to follow-up is a big problem. But you have to be one at a time. You have to keep it directed and straight.
I think that's fabulous. And I smile because I've spent so much time with Dr. Stephen Harrison and his like, is it rice? I'm like, what about brown rice? Whatever. Is it rice? No. Is it bread? What about potato? No. Is it bread? Okay, out, and I think you're right. Keeping it just really clear and direct and simple for people is really what works. Let me ask you about how you got into medicine. Are you from a family of doctors? And then, how did you choose hepatology? And because we love to, train more and attract more hepatologists. So write a love. Let's recruit some more young hepatologists now with how
this is a great question. Thank you for asking that. So how I got into medicine? No, did not. I have maybe one older cousin who is a physician himself, but no other family members were in the immediate family were physicians. My dad was in insurance all his life. So the way I got into it was mostly by attrition. That I can't do this, I don't want to do that. Medicine seems interesting, so that's how I got into medicine. But pediatric liver disease was very fortuitous. So I had just finished medical school, and I was taking a gap year, studying for tests, and I needed some money. I needed gas money. I needed pocket money, lunch money, whatever you want to call it. So I was looking for a job, and I looked at a posting for a research associate position. So it would pay. And I interviewed and I got it, and happened to be with a pediatric hepatologist. And that fortuitous job posting that I applied for and I landed and got the job changed my life, because this individual, Dr. Aurora, he's still very active in public health and epidemiology. At that time was a practicing pediatric hepatologist, and I would see all this is in the 90s, and see all these children that he was treating who had chronic liver disease, end-stage liver disease, big bellies, ascites, yellow eyes, emaciated, thin limbs, and we didn't have much to offer. Liver transplant was just getting off the ground, so to speak, in the 80s. And so that was starting to kick in. And I saw, when you did a liver transplant for such a child, you saved their life, you saved the family, and the children turned on a dime. They became normal. And that just stuck with me. And I wanted to do it. So I spent the next 7 years trying to get to be a pediatric hepatologist in training.
And you arrived. Let's talk about what hepatologists, several of us, talk about what needs to be in the medical school curriculum to have physicians who are better able to care for particularly NASH patients, and certainly pediatric NASH patients. What would you, and maybe your new role at AGA is centered on this, but how can more gastroenterologists and hepatologists be more knowledgeable and effective in communicating in the way that you are about nutrition, and how to have a lifestyle that supports the medical and other clinical information that you're that you're used to giving?
No, I think that's a great place to start. Catch them young, so to speak.
Yeah,
you're in the training phase. You're much more receptive to newer ideas. Some of the facets of nutrition, I don't want to get into too much history, but there have been some facets of nutrition and nutrition education specifically that need to be revised, and are being revised actively. Say, what is the importance of fat in our diet? and what does lead to obesity. We now have a much better understanding of the role of excess carbohydrates and refined sugars and processed foods in that realm. So I think those basic tenets of saying fat's not bad, and sugar and excess sugar especially may actually be a problem. Those things to get across at the very beginning, and of course, much more detailed in terms of, and we teach that all very, very well in terms of biochemistry and physiology. But starting with the basic tenets that are now kind of being re-looked at and re-understood, I think is part of our curricula that needs to be emphasized. It's there, but it needs to be emphasized. And the second thing I would say is bridging to the clinical side, and that's where the impact of obesity and obesity lifestyle disorders on children and adults is particularly important.
I see more hepatologists getting certified in obesity medicine. We see more integrated fatty liver disease clinics. How does that, how do those types of sort of changes in practice and practice models impact families, busy families in particular? You know, are there pediatric versions of those?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it brings back memories. So in 2006, I was still in Ohio. Dr. Zantakos and myself, she's another fatty liver disease expert in pediatrics, developed one of the first fatty liver centers in the country. And I got emails. So I started to write in my signature line on my email, co-director steatohepatitis center, and which is what we had established.
Right.
I got emails back from senior people across the country. You have a center for what? So to Gina's, Gina, you're talking about spreading in the general population. I had to start with my peers, and they knew about the disorder and the disease, of course, but to have a center dedicated to it, the importance for that had to be emphasized. So we've come a long way. I think now everyone understands that NASH is the largest and most common liver disease in children, unfortunately, today in the world. So it cannot be ignored, and we do need to address it.
Gina, how does NASH Knowledge, and I'm sure working with Dr. Kohli, answer questions about clinical trials and clinical research in children with NASH?
Yes, we do. So we get, questions about that. We really rely on like the experts on our team. That's Donna speaking to something you hit on earlier is just the power in community and teamwork, because we work with so many different partners and experts in all different areas so that we can stay up to date on all of that. But that's not really where our expertise is, right? We're really focused on more of the awareness and the education, but that again is the power of the Liver Action Network and the power of partnering with other organizations so that we can refer folks to the right experts from that regard. We do on our website. We have a page that kind of talks about like clinical trials and information there, but we don't claim that that's our expertise. We really are there to be a center to provide information out to the general public and refer folks to the experts that really can better address questions and needs.
I think that's great. And I think it's an underestimated part of creating a culture of participation in clinical research in liver disease, because if people haven't even heard of this condition, if they were ever confronted with and consent to this trial, we're like, wait, back up. I've never heard of it. I don't understand what this is for. And so I think that I've always been a proponent that clinical trial recruitment really starts well back with community education, creating trusted resources like yourself in the community. So someone approached for a trial might say, what do you think? Or who should I talk to? Or I might go through a trial. Can I still participate in the peer support group and have, and have my group, and just creating a comfort level and a context for clinical research to be conducted before you ever get to am I do I meet the inclusion and exclusion criteria for any particular protocol? I think all the work that you're doing needs to be done, and it is, underestimated in its value, ultimately to having a culture of clinical research. Dr. Kohli, you're nodding. Is all of this sort of helpful when you think about making sure that we can do the research that we need to do appropriately to have treatments that are specifically researched in children, not just borrowed, because they're not just little adults, not just borrowed from adults, or having such a long delay between drugs approved for adults and then nothing for children, is some of the work that you're doing, even just creating a better environment for successful clinical research in pediatrics.
No, I think education is definitely key, both peer education, which we do at our conferences and clinical fora, but more importantly, as we're discussing today, advocacy and education for the general population, especially because this is such a common problem. I'll give one anecdote that I feel strongly about in terms of the need for clinical trials in children for NASH. If you think about obesity as the incendiary event, so to speak, and it takes adults who get diagnosed with NASH, such as Tony got diagnosed, decades to get to the point where they are picked up to have elevated liver enzymes and end-stage liver disease. Unfortunately, some get cirrhotic and transplants because of it. But then you back up into pediatrics, and some children, albeit a smaller number, but some children get impacted from that same obesity very quickly.
Right.
And they get liver disease at supersonic speed. But they don't. The American Academy of Pediatrics and other societies, including NASPGHAN or the Society, now have screening guidelines, but not every child gets screened at the right age, and we want to advocate for that too, and get tested for their liver enzymes. And if we find that there are children at 10, 12, 13 years of age who have advanced fibrosis, they probably had some underlying predisposition that with obesity that other people took 30, 40 years to get to severe fibrosis. These people are getting it in the second decade of their life at 10, 12 years of age.
Right.
So they need to be in the clinical trials because they're probably the spearhead of this problem.
Right. When we ask about, what makes a fast progressor, I think the answer may lie in children. Is it a different disease or is it a different mechanism? But until we explore it, we won't know. And so I think that is so important, to be able to make sure that we are treating them appropriately. So I want to ask a question about. It seems to me, and my eyes light up, because I think this is a great way to highlight an issue that the entire Liver Action Network can get behind. And so it's not just you, Dr. Kohli, working away in your center, and NASH Knowledge, but now you have 14 friends and growing around the country who come together, in addition to all of the organizations in the NASH Council and in the Pediatric and Rare Liver Disease Council, to now say, we all want to see and have an expectation. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited that we can reset the policy agendas to really answer these important questions. Gina, what else should the Liver Action Network be doing, or are you excited that you've been able to do through the Liver Action Network?
Yeah, it's just been a great opportunity for us to really connect with others who, the great thing is we all have a similar goal. we all, and there's just such power in, collaboration and teams. And like you said, Donna, every one of us has like a different expertise and we can't do it alone. So just having that power, and like you said, having 14 friends and it's growing, across the nation, across the world, that we know that we can really work with and come to when we need different, different areas of focus or different advice or expertise. It's just such a blessing. And we just are so appreciative of the work that you and your team are doing and just all of the partners in the Liver Action Network. So
thank you so much. And I'll give actually a last, I know we're going over time, but I wanted to make sure that people heard what you did on International NASH Day.
Yes. So we on International NASH Day, I had the great opportunity to be on a local TV station here in Pittsburgh, and it was the number one viewed show in that morning hour here in the Pittsburgh network. But the great thing about it is they posted online. We've seen so much feedback. We've had people reach out to us even, hey, like just some of the things that we shared, some of the information Dr. Kohli shared that he shares with his patients, or folks that, hey, my kid's been told they have a fatty liver. I didn't know it was such a big deal. Or, oh, wow, I need to make some of these changes. So it was just such a great way for us to really, do what we say our goal is, to raise awareness in the general public, and to do that on International NASH Day and have the support of the Global Liver Institute behind us and all of our other partners. It was just such a blessing. We're just so appreciative of that. It really was very worthwhile and just helped further advance our mission.
Awesome. Well, you were a star. I loved it. I loved watching it. I want more. I want more spots. Tell the news station we want more spots to share around the world.
Yes. One thing, just real quick, I know we're running over time, but they did, the host did ask me afterwards, they would love to have us back on to talk about liver testing and what to look for in numbers. And so we stay tuned. That should be coming at a further date in the future.
Fantastic. Well, we'll absolutely boost that episode and link it to this so that people can see it for themselves. And this is just a bright shining example of what people can do, patients can do, families can do in partnerships with their physician throughout this growing Liver Action Network. So excited for you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At the Global Liver Institute, we believe Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. Join us weekly on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time for more episodes of GLI Live. Check out our website, globalliver.org, and follow us on social media to learn more about the Global Liver Institute and stay up to date with the latest in liver health. Until next time, stay safe, stay well,